Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Mystical Wellness Podcast. We have a really special guest this evening. We are joined by the Dryad, and Erin is a practicing druid, a spiritual guide who shares her deep connection with nature through her platform, the Dryad Stream. Her journey into druidry began with a profound discovery of ancient teachings that emphasize magic, wisdom, and a reverence for all life. The Dryad's practices involve engaging with the natural world, wandering through misty forests, tracing ley lines, and communing with the spirits of stone circles. Through the Dryad's work, she aims to help others find harmony and spiritual grounding by embracing the rhythms of the earth. She also offers spiritual services, including intuitive readings, energy healing, nature-based rituals, all designed to foster a deep connection with the natural world and one's inner self. So the Dryad's here to talk to us today about her ancient wisdom, magical practices, and do some tarot card readings for us as well. So I'm really excited because we just found out we've got the same birthday, which is even better. Dryad, thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It is very, very interesting to find out we've got the same birthday since I've never ever met anybody in my life with the same birthday as me.
Awesome, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I've met a
definitely.
couple of other people, but we were was one guy from Singapore and one person in India. I think there's one other person. Can't think where they were from, but they were all men. I've never met another druid who's got the same birthday as me. That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, so tell us how it all got started for you, because you're still quite young, but your energy is very, very ancient. That's how I feel when I connect to you. Um, so when did you know that you were a magical person? And yeah, and have you had any unusual experiences?
Yes, and yes. So when I kind of first started out, now I say first started out, I've always known that I've had a gift with communicating and I've always had visions. One of my favorite things to do in middle school, actually, with my best friend at the time, was the end of our schoolyard was actually a graveyard. It was converted, and I used to go and touch the bottom of the ground, and get a feeling of who used to be there and communicate with the spirits that used to be there before they moved the bodies because they'd still left that energy, that residual energy there. So I think I've always had the ability to do it. I've always had these visions, but I've never really known that nobody else has until I got to about my teenagehood. About 13 years old, it all got a bit too much for me, and I realized that I was the only person that was seeing these things, and a lot of stuff was going on for me at that time. So I kind of just completely shut myself off. Then at 19 years old, I went away to South Africa. And when I was away in South Africa, that's when everything woke back up. It was that ancient energy and being around that ancient energy and this incredible kind of cycle of life because I was living on a nature reserve at the time. So kind of life and death was something that we saw daily. It was just the time of year it was. And embracing that cycle really kind of opened my eyes and it brought back my visions almost instantly. Like it was that I stepped onto that ground and I just had this incredible like intuitive vision of who was there before. And obviously it had been years and years since this had kind of happened to me. So it was definitely something that I was going through that was profound. And I didn't really know how to express myself on it at the time, to be honest. I kind of stuck it to the side burner for a little while after that, and essentially it took me a couple of years to kind of come to terms with the fact that I had this going on. And then in 2022, my granddad passed away. Now my granddad, he was always like my father to me. I had so much love for him. And so I felt like I needed to make a connection with the spiritual realm officially, rather than just getting these random visions. I needed to make that connection to have the conversation. And I did. And it was almost like a spiritual medium put their hand on my shoulder, and that was enough to kind of trigger everything. And it was a conversation with my granddad that I had almost like straight away. And I would see him constantly, and this gift just got stronger and stronger from there. And since I got kind of awakened within South Africa, I began to get very, very drawn to trees, to the natural world. I was anyway as a child, but it was almost like a yearning. It was like I had to be there, and if I wasn't there, I was just like filled with sadness. And that's when I decided that I couldn't continue how I was. I needed to be a pagan. And I completely changed up my beliefs, and I decided that I would take a vow to become a druid. And I took my druid vow at Arbor on Yule in 2023. So obviously we're on 2025 now, so it's not been too long, but it's been long enough for me to understand the druidic ways, especially for the Tuatha De Danann. I've had a lot of visions, a lot of communication with Danu, who's the mother goddess. I feel as if she's been the one that's kind of been there for me always and been the one to guide me. And I feel very, very honored that honestly I've got this connection with her because it is almost as if she feels like she's my mother. It's that nurturing energy that she comes through with.
That's amazing. And I was just Arbolo was actually a place that I was looking at a few months ago with a retreat a friend of mine. And I was saying we
Yeah.
really need to go because that's where the ley lines all seem to converge. And I think we have a connection there, the two of us. That's because you saying that I was like, whoa. And do you
Yeah.
that's insane that
So
you
Arbelow's actually older than Stonehenge as well. That's why I
yeah.
was originally drawn to it because I actually done while I was going through this idea of I didn't know what was going on with my visions. I was trying to figure things out. I actually took a diploma in archaeology to see if there was any kind of ancient knowledge that I could uncover there that would help guide me, and there was. That was a lot, and it's kind of something I've used and as the guidelines I would say for my pagan beliefs now. Is the facts that I found out through that. And then since then, it's kind of been a matter of essentially touching trees, touching the ground, and getting those visions through, that communication through. I think what a lot of people don't realize is with nature, it is an open conversation constantly. And what most people don't realize is they're actually just not listening. You can just listen to the wind and get a message through. But most people are so wrapped up in their own heads, their own routines, that they don't realize what's coming through. And a lot of the guidance that they're missing is stuff that can help them in their everyday. And that's why I think my reading style is really important as well, because it points out these little things that they've missed.
Hmm. Do you do much with Norse mythology? Because the Norn word keeps coming in for me. I really feel like you're a Norn, or there's an aspect of you that was a Norn, that ancient well and all that ancient knowledge. Does that kind of draw to you?
Yeah, so it definitely does. The main kind of brand that I follow within paganism is the Irish paganism. So that actually has incredibly strong Nordic roots in it. It's actually believed that a lot of the Irish deities crossed over and moved on to be Nordic deities as Catholicism took over. So as you probably already know, a lot of the time with deities, they kind of evolve and go via cultures. So you can identify one deity in kind of three or four different cultures and make that connection that way because that's the journey of that person.
Yeah, that's so cool. When did you decide to pick the name that you go by now, the Dryad, and explain to people what a Dryad is in nature?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason I went with Dryad is because it's kind of the main point of my viewpoints. So it covers the fact that I am incredibly passionate about philosophy. Philosophy is essentially the backbone of my entire belief system. It's the backbone of nature, to be fair. A lot of what you see in nature is very, very philosophical. It's very, very deep. It has a lot of meaning that a lot of the time we just tend to miss. And then there's the nature aspect. Obviously, I'm absolutely obsessed with nature. I have been for a very, very long time. So a dryad is a forest nature protection spirit. And it's from Greeks. So within Greek mythology, a dryad protects the forest. It is a small being that actually doesn't really look like anything other than like a little tree being, essentially. But they're incredibly powerful, and a lot of the time people tend to underestimate them, and they tend to kind of ignore them, essentially. And I kind of really resonated with that, that being the protector of the forest, having that deep philosophical viewpoint, but then not being heard. It was really, really deep. It was really, really meaningful. It kind of spoke as my new name for me, to be honest.
Yeah, we're not joined by Lee this evening, but if she was here, she probably we did a meditation together, and in the meditation we were in a forest, and she literally stepped into the tree and became the Dryad. And when she came round, she just said, I can't believe the experience I've just had. I just literally became that tree spirit, and it was amazing. It's a
Yeah.
shame she's not here right now because she'd be loving it.
Oh, I'd love to talk to her about that sometime.
Yeah, it was a really profound experience. It just came out of nowhere, but so much information was downloaded in that one little meditation that we did together. It was so exhilarating for her. Really, it was amazing.
To be honest,
Um,
that tends to be how spiritual transformations work, isn't it? It tends to
yeah.
be like it all comes through and it hits you almost like a train.
Do you have a wand? And if you do, is it a particular or a set of runes? Is it particular wood, particular
I
tree?
don't have a wand, but I do have a particular set of runes.
Yeah. What is the tree
And
that you prefer?
yeah, absolutely. So it's actually ash. I prefer working with ash just because,
Yeah.
to be honest, that was the first tree that called to me. It was the familiarity of it, but I do really, really want to get into Ogham, and study Ogham. So I know the very basics of it. I know the B letters of Ogham is what they're known, so that's the first ones. I know those off by heart, but the other ones I don't feel as if I've got the correct level of knowledge to be able to kind of embrace that. So I've just been going with intuition on basis of wood for now. But I do want to back that up with the knowledge. It's just getting that knowledge in.
Yeah, I have a couple of set of staves, but I've not worked with them for a long time. It was something I'd love to revisit at some point as well. Yeah. So what's your kind of daily practices that you do? Is there anything that's kind of unique to you or that you could share with us? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if it would necessarily be unique. I think a lot of spiritual people kind of get within that same routine. It tends to be quite loud, especially since I try to stay in tune constantly. So I get a lot of stuff through a lot of the time. Even within my own area, my own home, I get a lot of visions and stuff when I'm touching bits. And I know it can be quite frustrating for like people around me because it's almost like I just go blank. And it's not that I'm not listening to them, it's that I've just literally like gone away with the fairies. And that can happen quite a lot, to be honest. And I feel like that does frustrate the people around me. But the way that I've tried to manage that, especially more recently, is with daily meditations. So I have a very, very chaotic mind. It goes very, very quickly. So the only way I've really been able to find that I can slow that down is by connecting with nature or by meditating. And sadly, where I live at the minute, I can't make that connection with nature every day, because we are an upstairs only flat and we don't have a garden. So that really, really sucks on my behalf. But I've found meditating actually really, really works for me because I've found a safe haven essentially within my own mind, that I can visit and I can meet and speak with my guides on almost a daily basis if I chose to. I like to be able to call my guides by name. I say it a lot to people that your guides should be like your best friends. If they don't feel like your best friends, then they shouldn't necessarily be there. And I think a lot of people can kind of get shocked by that notion because a lot of the time they're just like, I'll take my guides, I'll take whatever guides I can have, I'll have as many guides as I can, and that means I'm super powerful. But that's not the case at all. A lot of the time, it's about having that close relationship. It should feel like you're speaking to a best friend. It should be somebody you call on when you're upset, somebody that knows about your life, not just somebody who you call in when you're doing a healing practice.
How did how do your guides come forward for you? Is it a feeling or a knowing? How do they step in?
So I'm a clairaudient. So I have really, really sensitive hearing. And with that hearing comes bone conducting. And been able to associate which way is bone conducting and which way I'm actually hearing with my clairaudience. So bone conducting is when you hear really, really high or really, really low vibrations that sometimes other people can't pick up on. But then the other way is obviously with your actual hearing, using your hearing drums. And with that, I've found that when I hear actual physical noises through my hearing aid, through my ears, through my eardrums, it works out a lot better for me to listen to my guides that way. I hear them as physical voices. It's like I'm speaking to people. I've noticed with my bone conducting, however, I tend to pick up on a lot more lower vibrational things. So it'll be a lot lower noises. If any type of animal noises, if I get animal guides come in, I'll feel it in the back of my neck. And it'll be like that vibrational level. So it's almost like my ears vibrate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's making a lot of sense for me because when like 15 years ago I was pregnant, and when I was pregnant I lost my hearing. So
Mm,
there's a little bone inside the ear that just stopped vibrating. It was fused with calcium. I've got otosclerosis, so I've got two hearing aids now.
mm,
And but what did happen when I lost the physical hearing was my spiritual hearing started to kick in more. And I can hear crystals, I can hear auras, I can hear the elements sometimes as well.
mm.
And every now and then there is that bone conducting. And yeah, so that's kind of making sense to me now why some things like if I, it's like I can hear it at the back, I can hear it at the base
Yeah.
of the skull. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because
Yeah, it
it
can be
is
so
very different.
confusing, honestly, like navigating the different sensations. Especially like because I wear earpods a lot of the time to protect my hearing because it is so sensitive and because I get so many voices through. it's easier for me when I have earpods in to be able to differentiate, because if I'm hearing an actual voice come through as a guide, it's a lot easier to differentiate that voice from somebody who's physically talking to me like me and you are now when I've
Yeah.
got my earpods in, because I can feel that vibration easier as well, because it's something to actually push against, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with my guides on that level, it's an easy conversation to have, to be honest. And that was something that I actually kind of asked my guides for in the beginning. It was, look, I know I've got this incredible hearing. I know you're showing to me that this is something that you want to communicate me with, and I'm fully ready to embrace that. And as soon as I kind of turned around and said that I'm ready to embrace that, it really kind of started to make a lot more sense to me. I felt like they were coming through and showing me a lot more signs with my hearing and guiding me as to what the different vibrations were, and what the different hearing levels were. It made it a lot less scary, to be honest, at the time, because the doctors had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I get that too. I also get tuning into other people's, like, the collective energy thoughts. Do you get that coming through? Like, you can get other people's thoughts coming in, and then
It's more like finishing their conversation. It's almost like I can understand where their pathway is going, where their conversation is going, what the outcome is, rather than understanding what they're thinking. A lot of the time, it's more of an emotional feeling that I understand. I see auras quite a lot of the time, so I'll understand people via that emotional aura change, because obviously your aura changes with your emotions. So as somebody's getting sadder, then their aura tends to get darker. If somebody's feeling quite depressed, it's almost as if it gets bleached. And that's a really, really strong indicator for me on how to communicate with somebody, how to reach somebody.
is it the same for you if you're like we are now, where we're on Zoom, or is it better in person when you can touch that person?
So it works both ways, to be honest. With my Tree of Life reading, which I don't mind going into in a bit more detail a bit later on, that has to be in person because I have to physically touch, I have to combine those energies. But in terms of kind of aura readings, in terms of communicating, because I do animal communication as well, I can communicate through with animals through, like we are now, through video. And I can see auras through video. I can still do readings through video. It is just that psychometry level that I require that touch for. And that is mostly just to do with the fact that it is something that came through with my pagan beliefs. It's not something that I was given from birth, like my visions. It's something that was adopted to me. It was given to me as a gift when I turned to pagan.
And is there anyone in your family that has similar gifts?
So my nanny's family have always been really strongly clairvoyant. I think due to like the beliefs that they used to hold, it was very much frowned upon within the family. So I feel like a lot of them at the time kind of hid it, and would kind of put it down and play it off as if it was normal. But it's not ever been normal. And I think that was kind of my biggest realization when I was about 13 years old is, oh my God, this is not normal. Why are other people not experiencing this?
That's a really tricky time anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
almost like a second coming of age.
Yeah. Do you connect into the Irish ancestry of people? Can you tell that straight away when you connect to somebody? And do you remember living in Ireland in past lives?
Yes, so I've had past life regression, and I do remember I get a lot of visions through from that past life as well. One that I'm really, really connected with. And that was kind of my very, very oldest past life that I've connected with. It was from about 11,000 years ago. And I would have been a maiden in a castle. I had my own castle, my husband had a separate castle, and I had a herd of animals that I would care for. And this one animal that I absolutely adored the most was this absolutely incredible white giant deer. And this giant deer was like the dearest thing that I have ever experienced. Like the love that I had for that animal is the most pure love that I could ever imagine. And being able to feel that, and I feel that connection now, to be honest, when I communicate with animals, when I connect with animals now, I still feel that love come through because that deer that I had back then with that past life is one of my guides now. So I still have that connection there. And I think that goes to show, to be honest, how past lives can really, really affect you in this life now as well.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, wow. I have so many questions for you. Um, so do you have a spirit animal that you work with other than that deer, or do you work with kind of like the water elements and the fire, the salamanders and things like that? How does it work for you working with the elements?
So I honor the elements. I don't ever like to say that I work with them because, in my opinion, in my belief, the elements are a divine tool that are given to us. So you by working with them, you have to honor them. You have to give thanks for working with them, essentially. So I do work with them a lot. I like to give thanks. I like to honor them. I have my own shrines for them. And in giving that energy and in giving that thanks to them, they give it in return. So I think a lot of the time, people tend to miss the idea that spirituality is a two-way street. It's not all about us taking that energy, and it's not all about us giving that energy either. It can very much be a companionship.
I've not actually thought about having a separate shrine for each element before. I love that idea. So I generally have one shrine, and I work with quite a few different guardians, I call them, but and I represent the elements on that shrine, but I don't have one just for each element. I'm going to sort that out.
Yeah, so to me, to be honest, when I look at the elements, they're greater than deities to me. A deity will lend power from an element. So when you see them kind of being gods of the sea, being gods of fire, being gods of the sun, that to me is the alone power from an element that's a greater primal force.
Oh, do you work with ether or storm, an element that brings all of the elements together? Because I do elemental readings, but I work with like a storm element. Do you have something similar?
No, to be honest, I like to work with the most basic, the most primal form that you can find energy in. So I have considered it before. It's something I've looked into is kind of combining and having an experiment, to be honest, because especially within druidry, obviously you've got the pentacle, which kind of honors all five elements. And I do a lot of that in spell work as well. But to be honest, I do prefer to kind of have them separate. I prefer to honor them as almost their own individual right.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what kind of inspires you at the moment? You know, what kind of pathway are you going forward? What visions have you had for yourself?
So I I actually had this conversation with Marianne yesterday.
Oh wow.
Yeah, moving forwards, I've got big plans to be honest. I've got so many things that I want to do that I don't know kind of where I want to start almost. But I had some guidance yesterday from Marianne and some amazing healing, and I think I know the steps that I need to take now. So moving forwards, kind of the first thing that I want to do is actually write a book. So I'm going to write a book on my experiences, but it's actually going to be from a fiction point of view. So I'm going to essentially be putting my experiences with a twist, just because I feel like it'll be a lot more entertaining, it'll be a lot more interesting for people to read. And I think a lot of the time with more complex spiritual kind of situations that we have, where we have the different planetaries combining, coming in, different elementals, it's a lot easier to explain in that kind of fantasy point of view as well. So moving forwards, I'm probably going to be writing a book based on my experiences, but with the fantasy twist. I've got the plan set out. It's funny enough, I actually started doing it as part of a university assignment, because I'm at university studying philosophy and psychology.
That sounds incredible. That sounds really good. And I know you do astrology with your readings, or is that like a separate aspect? Do you do astrological tarot, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so to be honest, with astrology, I prefer to do it as more of an energy base. So with my astrological readings, a lot of the time what it involves is just the very, very basics. So kind of looking at that astrological chart, looking at that time, and deducting the information from there. I actually have cards specifically for that because it's something that I'm trying to develop. It was something the Druids were deeply connected with. And it's something I want to get back to again. It's finding those roots. To be honest, the services I offer now and what I talk about now, a lot of people tell me that they find it really interesting and they find it like really profound, but I'm really just getting started. I've got so much more that I'm gonna do, so much more energy to bring, so much more change to bring. Because to be honest, I look at the spiritual community right now and I see that there needs to be a lot of change brought about. So with my readings especially, I try to bring that change about within people's minds, you know. A lot of the time it's those self-limiting doubts. So that's something I try to focus on within all of my readings. And a lot of the time that can actually stem from that astrological point of view.
That sounds fantastic. We've got Maria here with us. Is it possible to do a small reading for Maria and then a little reading for myself? I would love that if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to introduce you guys to my newest tarot reading style. I've done a very, very brief one online already. So you guys will be the first ones that officially get the tarot reading on video. I'll start with Maria and then I'll move on to Julia. So it is going to be a pathways reading. So what this is it's based on a situation. So Maria, if you could give me a situation to start with that you would like to explore in more depth, I'll pull 3 cards on that and tell you which pathway it is you should take moving forwards based on those cards.
Right. Okay, I've just unmuted myself. I think I'm been considering for the past 18 months moving on from the house I'm in at the moment. And every time I decide I'm going to do it, I then decide, no, I'll stay in this house another year or 18 months. And it's been that way for the last 3 years, really. So, yeah, it's a good house for when my family come and other people, but I feel I need to move to something smaller. The garden's getting too big to deal with and things like that. It's getting a bit
Yeah.
too much.
No, that's understandable. So what I'll do then is do a shuffle on moving house for you because that's a big event as well. So that's definitely something that would be a perfect example to explore within the pathways readings. So if you just bear with me 2 minutes while I shuffle my tarot with the intent, and then I'll pull the cards away for you and I'll show them. I think a lot of the time when you're kind of looking at moving house and things, there can be a lot of hesitation and a lot of doubt within that in itself. So kind of looking for the guidance to be able to find that sign to move on could definitely
Yeah.
be something that's very helpful. So I've just pulled the first card. I'm just pulling the rest now. So with our first pathway, what we've got come up is the Knight of Cups. So I'll just show it here. You can see we've got the
Yes.
little fish. Now with this card here, what we're looking at is on an energetic level, you've essentially become quite stagnant. So you can see that the card itself is quite hectic, but the fish itself is central and it's looking a bit lost, if I'm honest with you. It's looking a bit confused and there's so much going on around it that it's not really sure how to make sense of that. So that tells me that there's a lot of energy around you right now that you've essentially just let sit there. So that's questions, that's doubts, that's kind of thoughts that you've been having about yourself within the house, within this property, that have essentially led to an energy buildup around you and around yourself. So that's
Okay.
probably why we're feeling this kind of this stagnation, this doubt about moving is because we've almost become attached to this property because of the energy we've put into it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does very much.
Perfect. So this is the Knight of Cups. So again, this is going to be all about releasing that stagnation energy when we move on to the next card. So on this next card here, we've got the Nine of Swords. So I'll just show that to you here.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be all about change, okay? So you can see at the very, very top for that side, you can see here we've got the energy coming in straight away. So that is an energetic point. So that tells us that we've got new opportunities coming in, new potential. But within those new opportunities and new potential, we've got a lot of different problems that could arise from it. So this is, again, another situation where we're looking at I want to move, but I am terrified to move. And the possibility of
Yeah.
moving brings a lot of different landslides with it, a lot of different problems. And that's what we're
Mm.
seeing in these swords. Okay, so that's what these 9 swords are here. And you're essentially the eagle at the bottom. So it's telling us in this card that in order to move out, there will be challenges to tackle, but they're not going to be huge ones. They're not going to be anything you can't handle. It's going to be more like minor annoyances, minor steps that you have to
Okay.
take. And then we move on to our last card. And we've got the Two of Cups, so I'll just show that to you here. And we've got it in reverse position. So you can see we've got our fish back here. Now, with the Two of Cups, it brings in, again, that same stagnation, okay? So what this actually tells me is ultimately with this moving house decision, you're actually going to be too scared to move on with the situation, okay? So with the nine of cups that we had in the beginning, and now we've got the Two of Cups here, this is telling me that within this pathway, within this decision that you've got moving forwards, the only way you're going to be able to move forwards is by removing that self-doubt, okay? If you keep that self-doubt, that doubt in your own abilities, that doubt in your own ability to take bills, to handle situations, to take control of a situation and step into that masculine energy, is the only way that you're going to be able to take that step forwards and take that courage into moving forwards, if that makes sense to you. So
It
again, we've
does.
got the fish here.
It does.
Perfect. So ultimately, with this pathway, what we're looking at is embracing that masculine side of your personality. And once we've started to embrace that masculine side of your personality, so taking the courage, taking on challenges, taking in that kind of situation where you take control, okay? So it's about you taking control. Once we have that control back, then I think we'll be able to move, but we aren't there yet. So it is going to be a matter of doing that first.
Okay, no, that's good because again, people keep saying to me, "Oh, I thought you were going to move this year," and I go, "Oh, well, next year maybe." I'm putting it off, putting it off, putting it off.
Yeah, to me, it does feel like it'll be longer. It feels like you've got healing to do in that house first before you're able to move on from it.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
That's okay.
Thank you very much.
That's great.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm not really sure what my question or situation is. I am moving into a new phase of
Yeah.
trying to find out who I am and call in all the aspects of my soul. So
Hmm.
I'm on this soul discovery journey, which is it's getting quite galactic now and really weird. Some
That
of it
tends to be
goes,
how it goes.
yeah, some of it goes into trauma and things like that in of me in other versions of me,
Yeah.
and other realms of existence. And I'm trying to reconnect and kind of bring back all the soul fragments and move forward. But so as a targeted individual, I get targeted on my finances, my
Hmm.
health, and things like that. So I just need any kind of guidance would be great at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, if you won't mind, I would love to do a spiritual pathway reading for you because I think that's kind of where we're at right now, to be honest. Like, especially looking at your aura now on video, it seems to me like you've got a lot of questions moving forwards about that side of you.
What does my aura look like?
It's got this incredible kind of purple, but it's also got pink and almost like this kind of it's like a turquoisey blue. But it's like a flowing this turquoise blue. So the turquoise blue kind of like flows through you. So that's where we're looking at that transformation coming in.
Okay, cool. I went with the violet flame, so I would expect it to be full of purple, so that's good.
Yeah, you are very purple. I'll just do the card pulling for you now. So I'm just
Thank
going to put
you.
the intention into the deck. Wow, this should be a certainly interesting reading. So I'll get onto the card that's made me say that in a second, but we're starting with the Two of Swords. So this is the very start of the pathway. So we're talking about starting from a bumpy area, okay? We've got a lot of information coming in. We've got a lot of different energy. You can see the energy on this card here is going absolutely crazy, okay? And we are stood on a mound of trauma, okay? So that means we're essentially upheaving ourselves right now in order to move on to our next phase. And that's what I'm excited to tell you about is this new
That's
phase
the
that you're
same
about to come.
card that you showed me at the beginning before we started recording.
Was it actually?
Yeah,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, so I didn't even notice, I'll be honest.
yeah. Because I remember the skulls and yeah, and I was thinking, is that the Two of Swords? Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
Like
God.
signature card of mine.
Yeah,
And the
well,
other,
that's where we're at though, isn't it? Like that's your energy right now. So that makes so much sense because this is the
yeah.
start of that pathway, that journey for you.
Because last year, Warlock had said to me, get your bleep head out of the sand. That card had come out. And I just picked one card at a show and he's like, get your head out of the sand. And I was like, oh,
Oh no.
to me whenever I
Like
say
he
that.
does.
Yeah.
Bless him. So with the next card, this was the one I was super excited about because I thought I was gonna pull this. So this is the Fool.
Okay.
So this means that we are in a time of profound spiritual transformation. Okay,
Yeah.
so this means we've got a lot of energy coming in. And when we pull eyes, you can see we've got the two eyes here. That actually requires me to pull two more cards on the situation. So I'm gonna pull two more for you now. Wow, how crazy is that? We got another major arcana come in. So we've got strength in the reverse position that's just come in. So that tells me that ultimately what we're doing right now is feeling quite down on ourselves, okay? But with the other card that we've got coming in, so this is the Nine of Wands. And that's obviously about all about owning your own power, okay? So
Yeah.
with this card that we've got the Fool here, this is all about you accepting your power. Okay, so it's going to be all about you moving into that phase of your life where you start to almost feel a little bit kind of vibrational. It's almost as if you feel a bit floaty, dizzy, is what I want to say. And ultimately, that's why we're feeling like we've got that strength card in reverse. It's because we're lacking that energy that we need to move forwards with our journey right now. Okay, so we've got so much spiritual energy waiting to come in, but physically, our body isn't ready for it. That's what's holding us back right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so with the last card, we've got the Knight of Swords coming in. So we've got this in the reverse position again, so I'll just show that here. And we've got another eye come in, so again, I'll just pull another card for you. So we've got the Three of Wands here. So with this card, it's actually all about you going on a journey within yourself, okay? So let me just show these. There you go.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we've got that journey coming in the reverse position here with that knight. So it's about you taking that initiative, okay? So ultimately, what you need to start looking at is actually improving your physical health in order to progress spiritually, in order to essentially be able to process all the information that they're hitting you with. I'm thinking things kind of like going onto a deep dive, doing research on ourselves and our past lives, going into that hypnotic state and doing that meditation. I think moving forwards is what we're going to need to be doing. And then implementing things to kind of help us more physically as well, because I feel as if we do need to embrace our physical health a lot more in order to progress spiritually. That makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, my physical health is not the best. I'm waiting for an ankle surgery. And then because I get the toxin coming in, like I literally got blasted so bad last night, and I was on a podcast and everything at the time. And
Yeah.
it's like blasting through the defenses. So I need to rebuild up my defenses. But because of the work we were doing, I was able to kind of reconnect with essences of myself and start to reintegrate. And that itself is quite a tricky process to reintegrate pieces of your soul that's lost. It does not
Yes.
feel comfortable.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it is such a big transformation that you've got going on, evidently by the Fool card. So that's like the biggest one that I think that you could get for kind of starting a new chapter spiritually, especially.
Yeah.
Straight after that card that we pulled first time, where it's all about kind of removing those energies and then starting afresh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
That's okay. Oh, that's so much fun. I love doing the pathway readings, honestly. I
Yeah.
really feel like ultimately they offer the steps people need moving forwards.
Yeah.
Because we get to the situation and that's like the first step, it's the stepping stone. That's why I like to call it pathways, because they remind me of stepping stones. And we look at where you are and where you're going to be by the end of that path. And it's just such a journey, honestly.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
So when people are working with you, do you get many people that want to do it on Zoom, or do they like to do other things? Like, can you do phone, or yeah, how
To be
do they?
honest, most people want to see me in person.
Yeah.
I've got a fair few places that I travel around, so I'm in Leicester quite a lot, Wales quite a lot, Norfolk, where I'm originally from, I'm getting a bit of a following there. So I travel down there to do readings as well. With my Tree of Life reading, especially, I really, really feel like that's where my energy's at. That's kind of my bread and butter. So that involves physically touching, because the way that works is essentially my natural kind of pagan hand, which is this one, so that's my right hand, and then my divine hand, which is my left. When those two forces meet together with somebody else's energy level, that's when I get to read their energy, and their energy appears as a tree to me. So what I'm actually doing is an energy reading, but it's a physical energy reading that I'm seeing rather than kind of an actual energy aura reading where there's no touch involved.
So when you say it's a tree, so can you sense what tree each person is? Can you like?
Yeah, so the way it appears is it depends on people's personalities depending on the tree. So I know who I've got sat in front of me pretty quickly because when I hold their hand, I get a very quick overview of the tree. It's almost as if you're opening your eyes and you've got this like big tree in front of you. And then instantly my aura dissolves into this golden light. And I start at the roots of the tree. And so we go underground. So everything goes black for me for a minute within my third eye. And then when my third eye opens again, I'm seeing my first vision, which is of a part of your life. And that's the tree's roots, and that's your childhood within those roots. So I'll see a vision of your childhood. And usually that'll be something that's defined your characteristics. So it'll be something that's kind of affected you in a way that maybe you've not realized. A lot of the time it can be self-confidence that kind of comes up where parents have said things and it's left issues left behind. A lot of the time it can be things that people don't realize, to be honest. And then we work our way up the tree, and it's almost like I'm working my way up the tree as a golden light. So I'll go up the bark, and within the tree trunk, what we actually find is this incredible explosion of energy and light. And what that actually is your soul. So I'm getting to see your soul on an energetic level here within the trunk, because it's everything that's made up you. So when I start to actually really peel back that bark, and really get into the layers, the nitty-gritty of that, I get to see past lives, I get to see future lives, I get to see your auras from that past lives, your friends from that past life. It's everything that would have affected you, really. And then I get to see your element. Now, within all of my readings, I talk about the elements a lot, because every single person has an element that matches their personality, that's essentially encompassed them within this life. And it's where people tend to find comfort, to be honest. So if you're somebody who really likes being around water, who finds a lot of comfort in water, chances are you'll probably be a water element. And people who find comfort around fire, and it works the same way. But you can often get people who are a lot more complicated, and we can get elements combining and things like that. So once we go past that area and we work our way up, we get to the branches. And when we get to the branches, that's all of the decisions that you've made in this life. So it'll be essentially a quarter of the tree will be your career path. And I'll see all the different choices you've made within that career path, and that has formed a new branch within your tree. And then we've got kind of family. So all of your different relationships within family. If you have children, I will see your children literally attached to your tree of life. If we've got relatives that have passed, they'll be kind of sitting on the branches waiting for me to talk to them. A lot of the time within my readings, I say to people that I don't necessarily like to bring past relatives through unless they want them through, because sometimes it can bring up a lot of complicated emotions, a lot of mixed emotions. So I like to be able to go into the reading knowing if there's a message that people are looking for, if there's comfort that people are looking for, because otherwise I've been in a situation where people have gotten very, very upset very quickly because of the amount of information that I've seen.
Dryad, you're just absolutely incredible. I'm gobsmacked. That doesn't happen to me very often, that I get lost for words. Yeah, I'm like, wow. I did have a question and I've lost it. I was thinking, if you were going to give, so we have a lot of people in our circle who are kind of newly trying to get into their psychic development and that kind of thing. What tips do you have for people who are trying to develop their psychic senses?
Figure out who you are first. You cannot go into spirituality not having a strong sense of self, because if you go into it not having a strong sense of self, the world will eat you alive. You've got to have that personality. You've got to have that strong image of who you are, what you want to do before you step into the deep end. By all means, embrace the small things like having some fun with tarot and things like that. But I'm talking on a professional level. You have to be able to know what you're doing and who you are and where you want to go.
That sounds brilliant. Got really high frequencies coming in my ears right now. It's like convergence of all these elements coming in. That's amazing. And tell us about what you've got going on in the next couple of months, any events you've got going on, and how people can find you as well. And if there's any other tips that you want to share with us, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first event I've actually got coming up is my psychic development group, which is called Finding Your Roots. I run it last Friday of every single month. It's all about, quite literally, finding your roots within your tree of life. It's figuring out who you are. Because like I said earlier, the first step to mediumship is figuring out who you are. So we ask some really hard questions in that. I'll be honest, it's not for the light of heart. We ask kind of questions related to traditions, related to family, related to gender. One of the big points that I actually stand on, and it's a hill that I'll die on, is that people should have a lot more care for those who are transgender, those who are struggling in that area, because we're all energy at the end of the day. And what a lot of people don't realize is that energy is masculine and feminine. Just because one person has embraced the feminine energy more or the masculine energy more, it does not mean they're any less of a person. So that's something that's the kind of topics that we like to explore. Next, I've got my Todwick event. So that's Richard's, that he's actually organized. And I'm holding a workshop there. So now that's a potion crafting workshop. Now that's a druid potion crafting workshop. So it's a little bit different. It involves all natural herbs that I've got myself and some crystals I'm bringing along. I'm going to be bringing little tiny spell jars, so you can make your own little spell jar to take away with you. So that's filled with the intentions, filled with the natural magic of the earth. Usually I would kind of do these on a custom based order. So the way that this workshop's going to work is it'll be your intention that you want to put into it. So if you want to receive more creative energy, you look at making creative potion and I'll guide you into making that. If you want more protection, then it works the same. And then after that, I've got my mystical market event, and that's my first big event that I'm hosting. We've had over 1,100 people interested online, so I'm really excited for that one. I think it's going to be pretty big.
That sounds brilliant. Where is that
Yeah, good,
mystical
sound
market one?
brilliant.
What was
So
that? Sorry.
is this under the New Wave banner or is that a different brand?
Yeah, so that's green brand new wave is the mystical market, and then red brand new wave is Todwick.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Okay.
And your psychic development group, is that online? Can people join that online?
It's something that I'm looking to do online, but I've not got it online yet. I've got it in person at the minute because what we do is a lot of group work. So I kind of like to sit people down and I'll pull the tarot cards, and having that physical interaction makes it a lot easier. But I am looking to bring it online, to be honest with you. It's something that I want to do. I am trying to bring my readings online, but I've had some issues with Patreon, so I've not got it sorted yet. But it's something I'm looking to bring for moving forwards when I have a break from kind of uni and events and whatnot.
Yeah, I use Substack for just general subscriptions, but it doesn't have the same kind of tiered levels as the Patreon. I do have a Patreon, but I don't think I've got anybody on it, to be honest. So I'm trying to move more into YouTube these days. But
Yeah, that's
that's so
understandable.
amazing. Let everybody know your website and your Facebook page and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so Facebook's probably the best way, to be honest. That's just adding the Dryad on Facebook. Literally all you have to do is type in the Dryad. I'm verified on there, so it's definitely the easiest way to find me. There's also my website, which is thedryadstream.com. Again, just pop that into a browser and that'll bring everything up. I have a Twitch, so that's the Dryad D, because I couldn't fit Dream in. So that's on Twitch. I do a lot of game streams on there. So if you are somebody who's kind of into the gaming scene, then I am all there for that. I've also got my Instagram, so that's the Dryad's Dream, and I am trying to, like I say, get my Patreon up and running, and that will be the Dryad once it's on.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We'd love to have you come back on. We seriously would love to have you on a regular spot, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that was
amazing.
fascinating. Really
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much.
No, that's no worries at all. It was really lovely to meet you guys.
Oh, that's been brilliant. So I'm just seeing how, making sure this is recording. There we go.